All right, hello everyone. So today I wanted to talk about standard form linear equations. So this is the last form that we have of these. We started with slope-intercept form, then we talked about HK. Now we're on the last one, which is standard form. So just like I said before, all of these create lines. They're just different equations and forms of equations to do that. All right, so let's take a look on the inside of these notes. So we have standard form. At the very top here, standard form is ax plus by equals c. So unlike the other formulas we've seen, like slope-intercept and HK, this one does not tell us what our slope is right away. It also doesn't tell us where to start right away. So it doesn't give us a y-intercept or a point like the other two did. So we're going to have to do a little bit of work in this one to find what we need. Okay, so let's take a look at finding slope first. Okay, so you're dividing opposite A by B. All right, what does that mean? Well, in our formula here, we have an A and we have a B. Now, those two numbers are going to go into our slope here. And we're just going to plug those in. And that's about it. If we need to reduce, we can. We can't always do that, but when we have the chance, we can totally do that. But yeah, so let's take a look at an example here of our slope. So I'm looking over here. We have 2x plus 3y equals 6. All right, so let's label off these numbers. So I know in our formula, our a is going to be the number with the x, our b is going to be the number with the y, and the c will be the last number that is equal to. Okay, so for our slope, for this one, we know we're going to need our opposite a, or negative a, over b. Well, our a is going to be 2, but I want the opposite of that, so we put negative 2. Over our b is 3. And that's it. That's all we got to do for that one. Our slope for this equation is going to be negative 2 over 3. We can't reduce it, so we're just going to leave it exactly the way it is. Okay, finding slope, not too bad. We just got to plug some numbers in. All right, well, let's see how we find the y-intercept here. Okay, so finding the y-intercept, replace x with 0, then solve the equation for y. Okay, replacing x with 0 is going to be that key term right here. Instead of underlining it, I'm going to highlight it. There we go. So what I mean by that is there's an x in our equation right here. We're going to trade out that x for a 0. So I'm going to rewrite it exactly the way it is, except instead of an x, we're going to put a 0. So I got 2, 0, I'm going to put that 0 in parentheses, plus 3y equals 6. Okay, reason why I'm putting this 0 in parentheses. Whenever you replace a number in an equation, you typically want to use parentheses just to clearly show what's happening here. You're taking whatever you had before, like this x, and you're switching it in for a 0. Those parentheses are going to clearly tell me that's what's happening. It also helps us to realize that your 2 and your x were being multiplied by each other. That's also what these parentheses tell me. So then let's just simplify this a little. We have 2 times 0, okay? Well, 2 times 0, that's the same thing as 0. And then the rest is going to stay the same. Now, what I did in class when I told other people to do is just drop that 0. You don't need it. So I'm just going to erase it. We do not need that. There is no reason to have it. So I'm just going to erase it. So that means essentially what we're doing in this step is just getting rid of the x, so then we don't have it anymore. So then we're just left with our y, because the rest of this says that we need to solve the equation for y. So that's what we're going to do now. I want y by itself. So this is where that solving part from last unit comes back in. So I want y alone. So what I'm going to do is divide by 3 here to get rid of it. So then I'm left with y equals 6 divided by 3. Well, that's 2. And our y-intercept will be 2. And this will happen almost every time. We're going to come across a couple where it's actually a lot simpler and you only have one step to do. But typically it's just these 2 steps, is get rid of that x and then divide. Okay, cool. So let's take a look at an example here. Let's take a look at number 1. All right, so for these ones, we're just finding the slope and y-intercept for each equation. So for number 1, we're going to need the slope and we're going to need the y-intercept. Okay, so let's start by labeling off our numbers again. So I know we had an A, we had a B, and we have a C. Okay, so remember, for your slope, you're going to want the opposite A over B. Okay, so our A is going to be 8, so that's what I'm going to put right here. And it's going to be opposite 8, so that tells me it's going to be negative. And then we want our B. B is 2, so that's what I'm going to put right here. 2. Okay, so this is one where we can reduce it. So to reduce, remember, you are going to divide by whatever your greatest common factor is. So for this, it's going to be 2. So I'm going to divide by 2 on the top and the bottom. So I get negative 4 on top over 1. So that is just the smaller version. Remember, reducing is just making it smaller. Negative 4 over 1 is going to be the smallest version of my slope. So that's what I'm going to use. All right, cool. So now we have the y-intercept. All right, so we said we could find that by replacing the x with a 0. So I'm going to write out exactly that equation, exactly the way it is. The only thing I'm going to change is making this x into a 0. So we have 8, 0, in parentheses again, plus 2y equals 10. All right, so remember, what happened with that 0 before is that we multiplied these two. We had 8 times 0, that's going to give us 0, plus 2y equals 10. But remember, we don't need to write in that 0. It's unnecessary, so I'm just going to get rid of it. Okay, second half of that was to solve for y. So I want y by itself, so I'm going to divide by 2 to get rid of that number. So then we have y equals 10 divided by 2, that is 5. So now I have my slope, and I have my y-intercept. And that's going to be it for that one. Okay, let's take a look at number 2. All right, I still want to find my slope and my y. Slope, y. Okay, so I'm going to label these. I got A, B, and C. A problem I see here, though, is this y. There is no number right here, right? But thinking back to when we're in class and when I'm pointing at all the posters that we have, remember, you have an invisible number that's next to your y, and that's going to be a 1. All right, so let's talk about the slope now. We have opposite A over B. All right, so opposite A, let's see, our A is 7. I want the opposite of 7, so it's going to be negative 7. Over our B, we just said that was 1. So that is what's going to go here. Okay, this can't be reduced, so we're going to leave it the way it is and be done with that. This is our slope, negative 7 over 1. Okay, so let's find our y-intercept. So remember, you're going to replace your x with a 0. I'm writing this exactly the way it is, but instead of an x, we're going to write a 0 in there. So you get 7 times 0 plus y equals 5. Okay, so I'm going to drop that 0 just immediately. I don't need it, so I'm not even going to bother writing out that step. So when we get rid of that, that's going to leave us with y equals 5. And that's all we got to do for that one. That is it. We don't have to do anything else because we already have what we wanted. We just wanted y equals 5 or y equals a number. So we're done. Okay, let's take a look at number 3. All right, we have 3x plus 5y equals negative 5. Okay, so I'm gonna need to find my slope again. And then I need to find my y-intercept. Okay, so let's label these off. We got A, B, and C. All right, my slope is going to be opposite A over B. So if I have A as 3, I want a negative 3 to go on top here. And then we need our B. B is 5, so I'm going to write a 5 in here. Okay, negative 3 and 5 cannot be reduced, so that's it. Negative 3 over 5 is my slope. All right, so let's look at the y-intercept. I'm going to replace my x with a 0. Same thing. I'm going to write it exactly the same way, but instead of an x, we put in a 0. All right, so now I do not need this 0 term anymore. This is going to just go away. So I'm going to be left with a 5y equals negative 5. Alrighty, so now I need y by itself. So I want to get rid of this 5. I'm going to divide by 5 so that it will cancel itself out and go away. So I have y equals negative 5 divided by 5. Well, any number divided by itself is going to be 1, but we still have that negative sign, so I'm going to have negative 1. And that is my y-intercept. Alrighty, so the other thing that we practiced during these notes was how to graph in standard form. So we're going to take a look at these lower ones here. Let's start with number 7. Cool thing about graphing in standard form is that it's really similar to graphing in slope-intercept. Only difference is we have to find our slope and our intercept. So we're going to take what we just learned how to do, finding the slope and the y, and then we're going to plot it after that. So we're just adding on an extra step here. Alrighty, so let's take a look at what we got. We know we're going to need a slope and that we're going to need our y-intercept. Okay, so let's find that slope first. We know it's going to be opposite A over B. All right, so what's my A here? We know our A is going to be with our x and our B is going to be with our y. Problem though, we don't have a number with our x. So remember, invisible number there is going to be 1. All right, so we want A to go here on the top. We just said A was going to be a positive 1, so I want the opposite of that, and I'm going to have a negative 1. And then our B is going to be 2. So I'm going to put that 2 right at the bottom here. Okay. I can't reduce this any further. It cannot get any smaller, so we're going to stick with negative 1 over 2 as our slope. Okay, now we need our y-intercept. So just like we did before, I'm going to write this exact equation, but instead of an x, I'm going to put a 0 here instead. So parentheses 0 plus 2y equals 4. Okay, now I just need to solve for y. So just like we did before, I do not need to write a 0, so I'm just going to drop that right away. So we have 2y equals 4. All right, I still want y by itself, so to get rid of that 2, I'm going to divide by 2 on both sides of this equation. So then we have y equals 4 divided by 2, that's 2. Okay, I got my slope, and I have my y-intercept. Now, I'm going to graph. Like I said, this is going to be exactly the same process as when we did our slope-intercept form. So I'm going to start with our y value first. All right, so y is equal to 2. So that means I want to look at the y-axis, which is going to be this one going up and down. I'm going to start at 0, and then I'm going to go up to 2 right here. And that is where my starting point will be, is the y-intercept. Okay, now I'm going to use my slope. So here we have a negative 1 over 2. All right, well, if it's negative, that means I'm going to go down first, and then the 2 is positive, so I'm going to go over to the right. Okay, so starting at that last point I just put down, which is our y-intercept, I'm going to go down 1 and then over 2 right here. And then I still have space, so I'm going to keep doing that. I'm going to start the last point I put down. I'm going to go down 1 over 2 right here. There we go. All right, I have 3 points, so I'm going to draw my line like so. And going the other way. Kind of. That's fine. There we go. Now we have a line. So like I said, you're just adding on to what we just did. You still got to find that slope in the y, but now we're adding on that last step of graphing it too. So let's do another one. Let's take a look at number 8. Okay, so number 8 also has that same issue that we had before. There are no numbers in front of our x and y. So I'm going to put that invisible number that we always have, 1. That'll be my A, and that'll be my B. Okay, so let's find our slope and then our y-intercept. All right, so our slope is going to be the opposite of A over B. Okay, well, A is going to be a positive 1 here, so I'm going to have a negative 1 on top because I want the opposite. And then our B, it looks like it's a negative 1. Being really careful here, since we have this minus sign, this is telling us we have a negative 1. So I'm going to take that and put that at the bottom. Okay, so this one can be simplified a little bit because we have negatives on both the top and the bottom. If that happens, got a negative divided by a negative, that's the same thing as a positive. Only because they both have negative signs. That's why I'm doing that. All right, cool. Slope is 1 over 1. Now let's find our y-intercept. So I'm going to replace my x with a 0. I'm going to write it exactly the way it shows me right here. Exactly, oopsies. Exactly this way. Just like this. Okay, so I have x, but instead of x, I want a 0. Minus y equals 5. Okay, well, immediately I'm just going to drop that 0 because I do not need it. So I have y equals 5. Negative y equals 5. Well, I don't want my y to be negative. I want it to be positive. So if you recall, we've done this before. I am going to divide by a negative 1 here so I can get rid of that negative sign. So then we have y equals 5 divided by negative 1. Well, that's just going to be negative 5. Basically, all I did here was switch this negative sign over to the other side. That's basically all we did. From this step to this step, I just switched over that negative sign. Okay, so last thing we need to do is graph this thing. So I have a y at negative 5 and a slope of 1 over 1. So I'm going to start with my y-intercept first. It says it's negative 5. So I'm going to go to my y-axis, which is this one. I'm going to start at 0. It's negative 5, so I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, all the way here at the bottom. Okay, that's where our line is going to start. All right, now we need our slope here. So we have 2 positive numbers. We have a positive 1, so that's telling me I'm going to go up 1. And then we have a positive 1 on the bottom, so it's telling me we're going to go right 1. All right. So starting from the point that I just put down at our y-intercept, I'm going to go up 1, over 1, right here. Boom. All right, next point right here. I'm going to go up 1, over 1, right here. Cool. Now there's definitely room to keep going. If you want to, you definitely can. I'm not going to make you though. So we already have 3 dots, so I'm going to connect those with a line and be finished because that's all we got to do. Okay, let's do one more just for a little bit of extra help here. All right, so I see my y does not have a number in front of it, so I'm going to put in my invisible number, which is a 1. Then we're going to find our slope, and then we're going to find our y-intercept. Okay, so I need an opposite a over b for our slope here. So our a is 4, our b is going to be -1. So opposite a is going on top here. So I'm going to have a -4 over our b. Once again, that b has a minus sign in front of it. So this tells me it's -1. There we go. Again, we have a negative over a negative. Negatives divided by negatives are going to be positive numbers. Okay, so we got our y-intercept now. Remember, replace your x with a 0. So I'm going to write this exactly the way it is, but instead of an x, we're going to put a 0. So we have 4 times 0 minus y equals -4. Cool. So dropping this dropping this 0 because we don't need it, we're going to have -y equals -4. Okay, once again though, I still don't want a -y. So I'm going to move this to the other side just like I did last time. I'm going to divide by a -1 to get rid of it. So then we have y equals -4 divided by -1. Well, like we just said, negative divided by a negative is going to be a positive. So that is going to be a positive 4. All right. That's our y. That's our slope. So let's use those. Starting with my y first, I got y equals 4. So I'm going to go to my y-axis right here. I'm going to start at 0 and then go up to +4. 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. Boom. Cool, cool. Now I'm going to use my slope. So my slope says it's going to be a +4, +1. So going up 4 and to the right 1. Ooh, problem. I can't go up from here. I don't have any more space above. So if I can't go up, I'm going to have to go down. I'm going to have to go backwards for this. So I want to do the exact opposite of what I have here. Instead of going up, I'm going to go down. Instead of going right, I'm going to go left. So starting at that point that we just put down right here, I'm going to go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1 right here. Okay, then we're going to do that again. Starting at the last point I put down, I'm going to go down 4. 1, 2, 3, 4 over 1 to the left right here. Boom. Okay, got 3 points. Let's connect those with a line. Draw some arrows. And we are good. All right. So I had the rest of the class finish these on their own. So they did 4, 5, 6, and then 10, 11, and 12 by themselves. So try these out. If you're not sure, that's okay. We're going to have an assignment posted in Teams, hopefully soon. If you have any questions, though, let me know. Send me a message in Teams or email me or whatever you need. And I'll see you later. Bye.